So I am live, once again, with the magisterial live stream for modernists. I imagine it will take a few moments as usual for people to begin to arrive in the chat. Especially since I think when a lot of people join, they get ads. An assault by ads. But I won't give my customary ad spiel yet. There's someone. So... people are starting to show up in the chat.
The right heroes could make all the difference.
I am Groot.
So, I am well. My wife is well. She may be in the chat. If she's not already, she probably will be soon. Dogs are all well.
I am Groot.
So all is well.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong. If we use our ice powers together, we can stop our enemies cold.
Ice powers? What the heck are you talking about, kid?
You are the Winter Soldier, aren't you?
I think something may have gotten lost in translation.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I am Groot.
This is not true. I can't even get Dominique Vanderklay to talk to me directly. I have tried many times, including starting a rumor that he feared me to try to goad him into talking to me, and even that did not work. So, maybe it's because he's getting too old for this. But so
They've made it halfway. Stop them.
DDP yoga is not real yoga, and that is the first thing that DDP himself will tell anyone who asks. And so it's a mix. There are a few yoga stretches in there, mixed with just plain old calisthenics. Stuff like, you know, push-ups, right? So I don't think it has the same sort of issues.
Behold, God of Thunder.
It is in no way spiritual. There were a couple other things there I was going to comment on, but now I don't remember what they were. So. So I'm going to assume that the end of that question was, did I understand that correctly? And so yes. So if you look at the holiness code, which is roughly Leviticus 17 through 23, most of the commandments there are given to the sons of Israel. But there are 4 times where it says, say to the sons of Israel and to the sojourner who dwells among you. Meaning it applies to everybody, even people who aren't Israelites. And those 4 happen to be 2 times talking about eating and drinking blood.
Us against the world.
And the commandments about sexual immorality and idolatry, which are not coincidentally the four things that the Council of Jerusalem says. I mean, I don't know in terms of thoughts about Miaphysitism. Last night on the Lord of Spirits Q&A, we talked about Oriental Orthodox and that. You're talking about, I've talked about before on here and other places that essentially St. Cyril of Alexandria is using the definition of nature that was sort of the philosophical definition going back to Aristotle. St. John of Damascus pointed that out. And so he was using a different definition of the word physis of nature than the others were. So the practical consequences, no, they're brought into the church, and in fact they replace the Northern Kingdom, the tribes of the Northern Kingdom. But they do that, right? They replace the Northern Kingdom, the tribes of the Northern Kingdom, not by becoming members of Judah, but as whatever they are, right? As Greeks or Egyptians or Ethiopians or what have you. So when you read Second Temple Jewish texts about the Gentile inclusion, Testaments to the 12 Patriarchs are sort of Exhibit A on this. They talk about, when they talk about this, they say that through Ephraim, which of course was the central tribe of the Northern Kingdom, Joseph's son Ephraim and the tribe, through Ephraim, the Assyrians and the Babylonians and etc., the other Gentiles, will attain an inheritance as part of Israel, right? But it's the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the Egyptians, etc., attaining that inheritance, right? It's not, they become, again, Judeans, Judahites, and therefore have part of that inheritance.
Need some help.
So the Gentiles remain Gentiles even as they are grafted in. And this really, right, if you understand how grafting works, St. Paul's analogy with the olive tree, right? When you graft a branch from another tree into a tree, that other branch, right, like, doesn't transform into the tree it's grafted into. It draws life from it, it's sustained by the tree it's grafted into. But for example, you could take a branch from an orange tree and graft it into a tangerine tree, and that branch will still grow oranges. It doesn't start growing tangerines, even though it's being fed by and nourished by the tangerine tree. So that's part of why St. Paul chooses that analogy. Right.
Us against the world.
Right. Israel is part of the church. Right. And so there are Jewish, Judean, Judahite, right? Jewish Christians, and then there are also Christians of all other different tribes. And their solidarity and their nationhood comes from God and from the ritual life of the church. Or from God through the ritual life of the church. The same way the original Israel was ethnically diverse and gained their nationhood and their identity from God through their ritual life of circumcision and the Passover. I never had Joseph P. Farrell as a professor. I am not a huge jazz guy. There's some jazz that I like. I own a couple of jazz records, but I am not a huge jazz guy. My mom was very into jazz in the 60s when she was in college. She went to college in Wheaton. At Wheaton, which is outside Chicago, Illinois. So she would take the train into Chicago and go to jazz clubs and hear jazz music. But, not really. There's a couple of skins. So, in terms of are the saints experiencing the resurrection now? Depends on what you mean by now, right? We don't know how time is experienced when your soul is separated from your body, right? So the answer I would give is a qualified yes, right? Like, I don't think they're in some kind of disembodied waiting room. I don't think that's the right way to think about it. But also, they're not
Nice deep freeze.
They're not like experiencing time on like this track, this invisible track parallel to us, right? Like watching things unfold in Earth in real time or that kind of thing. And that's important to make because that's an important point to make. Because there are a lot of frankly bad Protestant arguments against the intercession of the saints that depend on the idea that basically saints are just sort of like disembodied humans experiencing time parallel to ours. Like they'll make these arguments like, oh, how can they hear, you know, the prayers from all over the world? As if, like, they're hearing with, like, human ears, like, through sound waves that pass through air. Right? Like, that's not how that works. Right? Clearly. And so, we need to make clear that they're not sort of on this parallel time track. They're not sort of, like, Force ghosts or something. Or ghosts in general. Like just disembodied spirits hovering around somewhere or hovering around in heaven or playing harps on clouds or whatever. Right? So, while I think it is correct to say they experience the bodily resurrection, yeah, they don't experience time or space the way we do because they're not material. Right? Those are material categories. Yeah. So, with those provisos, yes. Yes, asterisk, all that stuff I just said. Am I involved in the Antiochian House of Studies? That's an interesting question. I am, but most of the people you might ask there if I am would not know that I am. So I don't teach at the Antiochian House of Studies. I am, however, on the list, so you could hypothetically have me as your dissertation or thesis committee member. Oh, and no, I did not watch K-pop Demon Hunters. And what all of you need to know about me, if you haven't figured it out yet, is the more people try and get me to watch it, the less likely I am to watch it. So just Father Andrew all by himself has made pretty sure that I'm not going to watch it. Yeah. I'm that way. And I'm also, like I've told people, I'm not interested in Asian animation. Like anime and all that kind of stuff.
Get ready.
Just, that's not my thing. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying
See
it.
someone with powers like yours?
You're bad if it's your thing. I will call you a weeb and make fun of you a little, but I'm not saying it's horrible, right? Like,
You just spread your
but yeah, it's just not my deal. So, like, if you want to talk about like
battle starts
Hong Kong cinema,
4.
like old John Woo movies and wuxia stuff and that kind of thing, like we could do that, but
Got it?
yeah,
Doom must be
it takes different strokes to move
cared
the
for
world.
so many lives.
Yes, it does. Different strokes, they move the world. As we were once told by the late great Conrad Bain. Yeah, I like Darren Aronofsky enough to watch it, and from the trailer, Ben Caught Stealing looks like it could be. It looks like a Guy Ritchie movie back when Guy Ritchie was good, like Snatch era Guy Ritchie to me, kinda. Although seeing the 11th Doctor with a mohawk is weird. But I guess, you know, he wears a mohawk, so mohawks are cool now.
Control lost.
I have not seen it, so I cannot comment.
Help, friends.
And I have not played Banish the Snakes, although that sounds interesting. Although I have to imagine, since it's a tabletop game, eventually there will be a Banish the Snakes Cthulhu edition. Because all tabletop games eventually become Cthulhu games. Yeah, I haven't seen Weapons yet. I don't see a lot of movies in theaters anymore. Because I'm Dutch and it's expensive.
Our way to victory. I'm weak. Who will help? Shit, everybody needs a hand sometimes. Or a dagger.
So yeah, I saw, I finally watched Thunderbolts since it showed up on Disney Plus, and I have to say I was a little disappointed, to be honest. Not because it was a bad movie; it was decent, right? Better than a lot of the Marvel Disney stuff recently. So I'm not slamming it, right? But it had been hyped up to me. Like, people had told me, like, "Oh no, finally they did a really good one. Finally they did a really good one." And it's fine, but it's just fine. Like, I didn't think it was especially great. To be fair, the only character from the comics that I really liked that was in that movie, that I'm a big fan of, was John Walker, and they didn't give him much to do. Like, U.S. Agent did not have a lot to do in it.
The area's almost yours.
So, I mean, it was fine, but I actually think I liked Captain America Brave New World better. Spicy take. And I definitely thought Fantastic Four was a lot better.
Help, friends.
Maximum pulse!
Because I'm hiding from you. That's why it says I'm offline.
Born again!
But I will throw you an invite after this game ends. I would not say I am fully immersed. My digestive tract is fully immersed in the beautiful food culture of the 337 area code. But I have no hint of an accent.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
For example. My favorite thing about the Book of Jubilees.
In unpredictable ways.
If you set
Um.
we swear we will devour you whole.
Well,
Probably the atonement stuff
When it comes to now, there is nothing.
after the flood.
Battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2.
But that's because I'm a nerd about
All you need to do is
atonement-related
capture
stuff.
the area. Got it?
So,
the evil on this.
if you don't know what I'm talking about, you could take the class I'm teaching right now, the Book of Jubilees. Or wait for, not my next book, but the book after that that's going to be about atonement that'll talk about it. So, Optionsville. My wife can answer about the carnivorous plants. The dogs are all well.
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now.
Maximum pulse.
Mission area is yours.
I'll take this slight lull in the chat as an opportunity to say what I always say before people are afflicted with commercials.
Control wall.
And that is that I'm not asking people for money, but if you have an Amazon Prime, if you have Amazon Prime, you have a free Amazon Prime Twitch subscription, and you can use that on this channel to get rid of the commercials. Then you won't have to watch them. So. And if you want to both do that subscription and still hear commercials, I could do some commercials for you. You listened to the end of the Lord of Spirits episode last night. I did the whole Jet 2 vacation commercial. So.
Born again!
Maximum pulse.
Wow, this Iron Man is the master of one move. Well, so, like the new season of South Park, and most of the other times Jesus has appeared in South Park, they're not satirizing Christ. They're usually satirizing Christians. Usually evangelical Christians. And often, one of the things I think stinks about it the most is that because it's on South Park, I can't use it as a sermon illustration. And there have been several that would have made good ones. Like this most recent one, in this season, the whole having Jesus show up at the school thing was making a joke about the whole, like, Republican talking point of, oh, we need to have Jesus back in our schools. And so, like, taking it literally. So in general, it's parody. They're not, like, making fun of Jesus. They're making fun of certain types of behavior by certain types of Christians. Okay, I can't invite you, man, if you're in a game. So what's this whole game you're playing with me? Oh, you're invisible. I can't see you. I can't throw you an invite. Okay, I'll throw you an invite after this game. Now what are you doing? Now you're not invitable. See, this is the kind of behavior. That is Orange Venom, but he's not explicitly, No, Nathan isn't the Prophet Nathan is not applying Economia to David because he's not stoned to death. David repents, and so he's not stoned to death.
I am Groot.
That's how repentance works. When you repent to God truly and with your whole heart, he forgives your sins. He still had to deal with the consequences of the sin in his own life. But stoning was for unrepentant sinners.
I am Groot.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong. Peter's glad to have another genius around to help him solve this, Tony.
Same. He takes my brilliant ideas and makes them ever so slightly better.
I'll be sure to tell him exactly what you said.
Please don't. There's no way I can do this without him.
Oh, and since I'm playing Groot here,
The battle
let me go ahead and make the Run Forest Run joke.
3, 2, 1.
If anyone I promise it'll be fun.
Better watch your back.
This should have made a Heal Forest Heal joke.
As good as new.
Did I ever end up watching The Bow?
Better stop that vehicle.
The Bow. The Bow. The Boys? Is that where that was going? Did I watch The Boys? I have watched The Boys, yes.
Stop them.
No, the unrepentant sin has to be,
Much better.
oh, The Boat. No, I have not yet seen The Boat.
There's still a chance to stop them.
No, it's that God doesn't need vengeance or to retributively punish anybody. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. The stoning was because to stop the sin from continuing, right? Sin cannot be allowed in the presence of God. So it's the exact same reason why today unrepentant sin causes you to eventually be excommunicated from the church. Right? It's literally the same thing. When you're excommunicated from the church, you're cut off from the tree of life, right?
Better stop that vehicle.
I think about the Roman Empire on an almost hourly basis, but I'm weird that way. Oh, no, Vengeance is Mine is talking about the Day of Judgment, which the Day of the Lord, which is sometimes called the Day of Vengeance. Meaning, it's not up to us to try to, resolve these things. We should leave them to God to resolve on the Day of Judgment. There was something I was about to answer, too, that somebody else said right before that, and then I answered that because I got distracted.
There's still a chance to stop them.
It was right before asking when I last thought about the Roman. Oh, the 4, yes. So I don't think it's so much St. John the Forerunner getting de-emphasized as it is that in the West, probably around the 6th, 7th century, and then, you know, by the time you get to the 11th century, for obvious reasons, even more so, it's that in placing the emphasis they did on St. Peter took his place in a lot of the popular veneration. So a place where you can see that quite literally is when you see depictions of who is at Christ's right and left hands in glory in the Orthodox Church, right? It's the Theotokos and St. John the Forerunner. When you see the same kinds of depictions in Western churches, it's the Theotokos and St. Peter.
Now might be a good time to stop them.
Right? So that's a place where quite literally St. Peter takes his place. But in an even broader sense than that, right? Their emphasis on St. Peter sort of occludes the emphasis on St. John the Forerunner that we have over time.
Shake it up.
I am
Watch me soar.
Armed and dangerous!
Whereas there's certainly plenty of veneration of St. Peter in Orthodoxy, but not the kind you find in the West. Yes. The modern iconostasis is both, right, responding to the findings of Nicaea, but it's also intended to portray the heavenly reality.
It's now or never. Stop them.
You know, people watching this streams can attest, before I joined forces with the man of 1,000 heresies, I was winning all these games. I think the man of 1,000 heresies, through his many heresies, has brought upon me a curse. Well, part of it is a lot of inquirers, if they're from a Protestant background, don't have a sense of the sacred in general and sacred space in particular anymore. I recently saw somebody literally arguing online, a Protestant, that you shouldn't call the interior of your church a sanctuary because it's not any holier than any place else. You should just call it the auditorium.
Help, friends.
So they really don't have a concept of the sacred and sacred space. So to them, they see having an iconostasis as just like, oh, you're excluding people from something. They don't see it as, no, we have separated off a space so that that space, by being separate, can be holy. Like, that's not a category they have. They don't have the holy or the sacred and the common. They just have, like, morally good and morally bad. And so, with inquirers, part of the catechesis process has to be sort of reinitiating them in those distinctions. Well, yeah, Saints Peter, James, and John, and those are Saints James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were the inner circle of Christ's disciples during his ministry. And then, interestingly, when you get into Acts and when you get into, like, what St. Paul says in Galatians about the pillars, it's Saints Peter, James, and John, but it's a different James. And we mentioned this in our episode about apostolic succession. What you get from the New Testament is that St. James is an office. Right? Because it's St. Peter, St. James, and St. John, that St. James dies very early. He's martyred very early in the book of Acts. And St. James, the brother of the Lord, becomes the pillar, who also happens to be named St. James. But so St. James is like an office. And that's part of the subtle way in which the New Testament reveals the idea of apostolic succession.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
You kids should stay out of this.
It's all
And it's also kind of connected. Here's something we haven't talked about on Lord of Spirits yet.
With a single sword, so this will be easy.
It's also related to
the battle
the
starts
Jewish
in 5,
understanding of the
3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the
well,
mission.
proto-martyr
Got it?
means the first martyr. So usually St. Stephen has the title of proto-martyr because he actually was killed before St. James the son of Zebedee. But St. James the son of Zebedee was the first of the 12 apostles to be martyred. But so the transmigration of souls thing. Here we're going to go into some touchy territory. So you will sometimes hear this stuff that Jewish people believe in reincarnation, or the transmigration of souls a la reincarnation. They do believe in a version of the transmigration of souls, but it's not reincarnation the way that like Hinduism or Buddhism believes in reincarnation. They don't believe that people get like the identity of one person gets reincarnated in another person, right?
You lose something spectacular.
But and this starts in Second Temple Judaism, but there's hints of it in both the Old and New Testaments, like St. James being in office, that in some way a person can partake of the soul or the spirit of another previous person, another, like a saint, right? So think about Elisha receiving Elijah's mantle. Think about St. John the Forerunner coming in the spirit and power of Elijah. Think about the fact that when Christ asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" that some of the people apparently were saying he was St. John the Forerunner. Well, St. John the Forerunner was around, right, while Jesus was around. He had only died recently, right? And so obviously they didn't think that like Jesus was born after St. John the Forerunner died. It was a reincarnation of St. John the Forerunner, right? But by saying that, they're saying that he partakes of some way in his spirit. That's why they could also call the Messiah David, right? They could call all Israel by the name Jacob. They could call that there is this sort of connection at the soul level. And it's out of that really that our understanding of like patron saints come from. And if we understand those roots, it kind of enriches our understanding of what's going on with patron saints. I have not watched that Esoterica video. It keeps getting recommended to me. I get Esoterica videos recommended to me all the time. So I'm apparently moving in those YouTube circles, but I have not watched that one yet.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Natural selection. You pretend to be a machine, yet you are just organs in a metal shell.
There's an organ called a brain, Ultron. It created you. And I know that drives you crazy.
Energy at max, shall we?
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
If I could get a
So I had people link it to me. I saw a couple clips of it. So here's the problem I have with debates like that. And it is nothing against Jay Dyer. It is that part of the problem is most of the people in these debates are not in the same weight class as Jay Dyer is as a debater, right? And this is a problem with a lot of debates. When you have two people and you have one who's just way better at debating than the other, right? All the debate really shows you is how much better they are as a debater, right? So I compared it to, like, if they had, like, Brock Lesnar having MMA fights against random guys off the street. Like, it would be entertaining a couple times to watch Brock Lesnar just destroy somebody, but eventually it would get boring, and you'd want to see him take on somebody, right, who, you know, was of a similar skill level. The only guy I could think of on the Roman Catholic side who's, like, just debating skill-wise around Jay's level is maybe Trent Horn. Trent Horn's got a lot of debating skill. Obviously, I think he's wrong about a lot of things, but he's just debating skill-wise. I'm just talking about debating skill now. And so, to me, that makes the debate less interesting, because, like, that guy, I don't even think he was represented. So, first of all, I didn't have the debate skill, and then number two, I didn't think he was actually representing Roman Catholicism very well. As in, like, I think a lot of the stuff he said, you'd be hard-pressed to find an informed Roman Catholic theologian who would say that he was correct about a number of those things, right? And so, not only is he not a very good debater, and I don't know if that's because he just doesn't know Roman Catholicism that well, or maybe it's just because he was so far behind in debating skill that he just got flustered and, you know, made a poor showing. I don't know. You know, he may be well versed in Roman Catholic theology, and like I said, just, like, was out of his depth debating skill wise, and so it didn't go so well. But yeah, that's why I wasn't really interested in watching the whole thing. It's like, from the clips I saw, I'm pretty sure Jake leaned his clock, you know. But honestly, that doesn't prove our orthodox position right as much as it proves that Jay Dyer's a much better debater. And that, you know, relatedly, the other fellow wasn't that good at defending his position. Although, of course, I do think our orthodox position is right, of course.
You've captured more than half of the mission area. Keep going.
Heavy weapons.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, if you've done speech classes and speech and debate classes and stuff, right? You know that just debating is a skill unto itself. I had to stop. So I had a... this is true story. Here's some Father Stephen lore. I don't know how publicly I've told this story before. But it's when I personally stopped being all that interested in doing debate. We had a debate in a theology class in my undergrad. And I was assigned... I was assigned to debate, in the debate, to take the Arian position. Like, Council of Nicaea, the other side, the other people were assigned to take the Trinitarian position. I was assigned to take the Arian position. And I'm not saying this to be immodest, because it's probably to my condemnation. I destroyed the other side. To the point that, like, the people debating on the other side were going up to the professor afterwards saying, why is he wrong? Right? And I'm sitting here going like, I'm not trying to convert people to Arianism. Right? Like, I'm not trying to do that. And so, you know, maybe this isn't something I should really pursue. And it showed me the weaknesses of the whole thing. Like... So...
Another epic victory! Big win!
And people who know me can attest, I still have to fight my desire to argue for sport. Like, a lot. Like, my temptation to just sort of assume opposite positions to people and then debate them. So, that's why you're not going to see me doing... The only person I would do a formal debate with is James White, just because I think that would be fun. And I would be doing that just for fun. So, but yeah, other than that, you're not going to see me doing debates. That's why when I went on with Gavin Ortland on that channel, I'm like, I don't want to do like a debate. I just want to do like a discussion. So yeah, so in terms of presuppositional apologetics, so, I mean, I have a Master of Divinity from Westminster Theological Seminary, so I was educated in the hub of presuppositional apologetics, right? Like,
The right heroes
Cornelius Van Til was a professor there, and was also a minister in the church I grew up attending. So, like, I'm fully familiar with presuppositional apologetics. I was not convinced by presuppositional apologetics at that time, before I was Orthodox. Part of the thing is, there's sort of this false dilemma in terms of typical Christian apologetics, sort of the architecture of it, is that
You're looking a little dried out.
part of the architecture of it is that there's this dichotomy set up between what's called evidence, and I'll back up a little and explain what these are for people who might not know.
If Johnny's around,
So, evidentialist apologetics is the stuff that, if you were ever around the Protestant and evangelical world, you've heard a ton of,
3, 2,
right?
1.
It's like Josh McDowell, evidence that demands a verdict, right? You know, we're going to make arguments to prove, based on evidence, we're going to try and prove that logically or historically or whatever that Jesus rose from the dead, right? And we're going to try and prove this in an objective way so that, like, even a complete atheist will have to admit that, oh wow, you know, based on your arguments and this evidence, I have to accept that Jesus rose from the dead, right? Or that kind of argumentation, right? And so presuppositional apologetics really emerged as a criticism of that. And the central critique is that evidential apologetics like that makes a bunch of assumptions. It's based on a series of assumptions. And one of those assumptions is that there's such a thing as sort of neutral ground. Like there's some kind of neutral ground that me and a materialist atheist, some set of beliefs or first principles or something that he and I have in common, so that we can start there. We can start from that neutral ground that we both agree on and have in common. And then we can argue from there, rationally, through logical constructions, and get to Christianity. Okay. And presuppositional apologetics wants to point out that that neutral ground really doesn't exist. Right? And I think this is a place where presuppositional apologetics partakes in postmodernism, but in the best way possible. In the sense that it partakes of the postmodern critique of modernism. That there is no neutral ground, there is no sort of objective point, right, that's going to be obvious to everyone. I had a professor at one point who was of this ilk, who would say things like, when you did a paper in his class about scripture, he wanted you to lay out, here's what the text says, and lay it out in a way that anybody, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, atheist, would all look at your arguments and they'd all have to agree, yes, that's what the text means. As if that's possible, right? As if that's possible. So, presuppositional apologetics takes seriously the fact that your metaphysical commitments about whether there's a God or not, and whether he created the world we live in, and whether there is some kind of divine order in the world, and whether or not sin is a thing, and whether or not, right, that all of those things, your beliefs on those one way or the other, shape everything else that you think and everything else that you argue, right? And so that's a good critique of that evidentialist way of approaching it, right? But there's a couple problems with presuppositional apologetics, at least the way Reformed people lay it out, following Cornelius Van Til. One of those is that they want to claim, while they critique the idea of neutral ground, they aren't really going all the way and critiquing the idea of, for example, objectivity. They just want to say that all of the objectivity, all of the logic and reason, all of that all belongs to Christianity in some way. Right? And so atheists are working on borrowed capital. Any non-Christian is working on borrowed capital when he or she uses logic. They're stealing logic from the Christians. And so this gets really weird when you start pointing out the facts of history, right? Because they, for example, want to say that Plato and Aristotle are evil heathen pagans, not Christians. And it's like, yes, but Aristotle invented all of the logic you use. That didn't come from Christianity. That is a pre-Christian thing that you're using, logic, right? And so, the natural law theorist has a much better case when he says, look, Aristotle is living in God's creation. Logic is just describing the way God's creation works. Therefore, even a pagan like Aristotle can look around at God's creation and see the order that God put there. Right? That seems to me to be a much better argument than to try and make logic somehow Christian and Plato is bad and... Right? And the Reformed types also use this to try to completely discredit the Church Fathers. Because they do this whole riff of, oh look, the Church Fathers, they all use Greek philosophy, see? That's foreign to Christianity. Right? There's no neutral ground with paganism. Now, Jay and people aren't doing that, right? The online Orthodox apologists like Jay Dyer, who are don't use it that way. They also don't share another presupposition with the Reformed presuppositionalists. Because the Reformed presuppositionalists, of course, being Reformed, assume total depravity. Right? So, they're assuming that reason is impossible to the unregenerated, for example. Which is not part of Orthodox anthropology. And people like Jay and folks don't think that it's part of Orthodox anthropology. So that's a difference. So they're doing kind of a modified presuppositionalism. I think it would be better just to use the critique of evidentialism offered by it without necessarily identifying as presuppositionalist and therefore raising questions about the other, presuppositionalism's presuppositions, right? To which we don't hold, at least in the way that it's held by Reformed people. I don't see a problem with using it as a tool, but identifying that way, I think, is an issue. at least at the level of sort of potential confusion, lack of clarity. So I hope that answers the question about that. To anyone who's not interested in that, I apologize for the length of that discussion. In terms of somebody said they got a bunch of Paul Tarazi's books at the bookstore. So here's the thing. I don't know if you were listening to the recent Q&A episode on Lord of Spirits, where I talked about fringe figures like Bulgakov or Bulgakov, and how there's nothing wrong with having fringe figures as long as you have a strong center. Paul Tarazi, Father Paul Tarazi, Father Paul, is a textbook example of that. Father Paul Tarazi is a fringe figure. His theories are very fringe. And I'm not just talking about for orthodoxy. I'm talking about their fringe for, like, biblical studies. It is a tiny minority of people, mostly his students, who hold to his theories. That said, Father Paul, from personal experience with him that I've had, is not dogmatic about any of his thinking on those things. He's making suggestions and proposals, and if you disagree with it, he's totally fine with people disagreeing with him. He did not grade students down for disagreeing with him. As long as they disagreed respectfully and they made arguments, right, that were decent arguments, he was totally fine with people disagreeing with him. The problem when Father Paul was teaching was that I can count. I can still now it's probably I probably need two hands now. Until a few years ago it was one hand, but even today I can still count on two hands, my two hands, how many Orthodox biblical scholars there are writing in English.
Maximum pulse.
And that means that
Your powers are mine. Us against the world.
that means that when, you know, if there's only 4 or 5 and one of the most prominent ones is a fringe figure, that's not a good balance, right? And so that was kind of the problem with Father Paul when he was teaching. But so the more, I think the more people we get going into biblical scholarship from an Orthodox perspective, the more we'll be able to appreciate what Father Paul brought to the table. I have not yet read The Language of Creation. In terms of how many Groot skins I have, I will show you before the next game. There was in Europe, which is where all major academic movements start, there was in the middle of the 20th century, the big movement in Orthodox scholarship in Europe was the neo-patristic movement, which was emphasizing patristics, which is important. It's an important part of our heritage as Orthodox Christians, obviously, the fathers. And so because of that, there's a whole generation of Orthodox scholars in the U.S. The U.S. had hit a couple decades later, who went into patristics. And so there are tons of Orthodox patristic scholars. We have some of the top patristic scholars in the world in the Orthodox Church. There's a lot of them, because we had a whole generation that's the direction they went. And that's cool, but that's the direction they went, right? So they were not getting into biblical studies. Even a lot of the people who are teaching Bible at our seminaries, now and in the past, Tarazi was not one of those, but are not actually biblical scholars, meaning they don't have a biblical studies degree. They have a patristics degree, and they did a dissertation in something like patristic exegesis of even Dr. Jeannie's dissertation is magisterial and is great. I recommend everybody read it. But her dissertation was on St. Andrew of Caesarea's commentary on Revelation. It was not on the book of Revelation itself. Right? So most of the Bible folks in the Orthodox Church of that generation, the generation preceding mine, the people who did Bible stuff were still doing it from the perspective of patristic studies, which again is a good thing to have. I'm not saying we shouldn't have that, but I'm saying there's other things. Biblical studies has been dominated, as one might expect based on their belief in sola scriptura, by the Protestants for a lot of years, like pretty much since its inception, right? So you're not going to get, by the same token, you don't have tons of Protestant patristic scholars. You have a few, right? Just like you have a few Orthodox biblical scholars, right? So it was sort of you could understand why the interest. But now, you know, obviously the scriptures are a big part of our Orthodox inheritance too. Like, the scriptures don't belong to the Protestants. So now more people are, and I know in a couple cases, reading my books might have helped encourage somebody to go into biblical studies instead of patristics, which makes me happy. Might not make some other people happy, but so yeah. So Orthodox biblical studies will just be a question of having more Orthodox people doing biblical studies. And bringing a different perspective to it. Because, as we were talking about before, there actually isn't any neutral ground. No one is objectively reading the text. There is no interpretation of the text that all religions can agree on, right? You're going to read and interpret the text based on all kinds of things, right? But including your religious beliefs. So here are my Groot skins. Default Groot skin. Movie Groot skin. Symbiote Groot skin. Red Groot skin. That was the Blood Hunt Groot skin. So I have 4, and those are them. Those are they. I know that last one was kind of fast, but you can always pause the video on demand and look at it more. Pause the VOD.
In 30 seconds. Stay strong.
So many different types of trees out there.
Have you ever considered, like, not to usurp the throne of Asgard?
Yeah, the red Groot skin is the one I was using before this. So it's probably tied with this one for my favorite. I like this one just because it's like the biggest, bulkiest one.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This time, Hullabaloo?
You need to stop that vehicle in its tracks.
I have not read The Language of Creation by Matthew Peugeot. I have not. I've seen things on it. I've read lengthy quotations from it. I've heard discussions of it, but I have not actually sat down and read it.
Better stop that vehicle.
So, little known fact, Groot is one of the oldest characters in this game. Not in terms of his age in the Marvel Universe, but in terms of when he premiered in the comics. Because, so Namor and Captain America are older because they're from the 40s. But Groot was actually from a sci-fi comic in the 1950s. He was the, like, tree monster from Planet X. There was just a one-off issue of, I think it was Strange Tales, that had Groot as this tree monster from Planet X in it. At that time, so after the 40s, almost all superheroes, except for Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, stopped being published because of the Comics Code, censorship stuff. Didn't let much, didn't make a lot of leeway for publishing most kind of superhero content. And so Marvel, which was actually Atlas Comics at the time, was publishing, yes, Wonder Woman survived the Comics Code.
Now might be a good time to stop them. Stop that vehicle.
I mean, barely. She was down to one title. but she did survive. And so throughout the 50s, Marvel was Atlas Comics, and it was they're publishing lots of like monster comics, sci-fi stuff, all the kind of stuff you'd see in 50s movies, right? Like all that kind of popular stuff. And Groot was a one-off character in one of those issues. Then in the late 50s, DC started bringing back more superhero titles. They introduced Barry Allen as the new Flash and Hal Jordan as the new Green Lantern and stuff. Superheroes became popular again, and in 1961, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the Fantastic Four, and Marvel Comics became a whole thing. But so yeah, when Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning were putting together the new Guardians of the Galaxy, they grabbed Groot just because they thought he was interesting from that weird old obscure comic and put him on the team from Planet X. So that's where Groot comes from. So in terms of hobbies, I think part of how we have to understand hobbies has to do
Brings together
Better
every
stop that
dimension.
vehicle!
Even someone
with...
never seen.
He kind of does. He kind of does. But, yeah, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning are responsible for a cosmic saga at Marvel. You can now get, like, in 5 omnibuses, starting with Annihilation. That is just amazing sci-fi comics. But anyway, hobbies. So part of the problem with understanding hobbies is we've all gotten this Puritan stuff ingrained in us just from the culture around us, right? The Protestant culture around us. And part of that problem with that Puritan culture is, as we were talking about earlier, it doesn't understand the difference between sacred and profane, in that it treats profane as bad or evil. But that's not the distinction that you find in, like, the scriptures. I'm talking about the Old Testament now. Sacred means set of, or holy means set apart. So something that is holy is set apart. It is literally impossible for everything to be holy. You cannot make everything holy. You cannot set everything apart, because then what is it set apart from? Like, definitionally, everything can't be holy.
One more for the soul suit.
Right? What makes something holy is that it is set apart from the common. Right? From the common usage. Right? So, I've used the example before in terms of explaining something being holy and set apart. There is not like a material difference between the chalice at my parish and my Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan Collector's Cup. Right? It is not that like the chalice is made of sacred metal mined from the Holy Mountain or something. Right?
I am ready to...
It's made from common materials, just like my Star Trek cup. Right? The difference is the usage. The chalice is set apart. It is used and only used, exclusively used, for the Eucharist. My Star Trek II Wrath of Khan Collector's Cup holds any manner of beverages on any given day. Right? It is common. It's just a regular cup. If someone stole the chalice from my parish and started just using it to drink whatever out of, right, it would no longer be holy. It would no longer be set apart. It would no longer be a holy chalice. It would just be a cup at that point. Unless it was taken and reconsecrated and devoted exclusively to be used for the Eucharist. So, the cups in my cupboard, my coffee mugs, are not evil or bad or tainted with sin. Right? Just because they are not communion chalices. Right? And you can't make every cup a communion chalice. You need to hydrate, right? And receiving communion, even daily, is not going to do it for you. That's not going to sufficiently hydrate you to stay alive.
Armed and dangerous.
Right? So, those things are common. Nothing wrong with the common. And what I mean by you can't make everything holy is if you try to make everything the same, you end up with an auditorium instead of a sanctuary, right? You don't get everything being holy. It can't be set apart from nothing. You get everything profane. Everything just becomes common. And you have nothing holy, nothing sacred, nothing set apart. So yes, and so what that means is, that same thing applies to time. That same thing applies to your life. Okay? You can't make every moment in your life holy. You can't. It's not possible. To have some part of your life be holy and sacred, they have to be set apart from the rest of your life. That's what that means. Even if you go to Mount Athos, the monks on Mount Athos, guess what? They go to the bathroom. They go out and do work gardening. They go and do repairs. They sweep and they clean. And even if they're praying while they're doing it, the prayers are holy, but the sweeping is not holy. The sweeping is sweeping. Right? The sweeping is sweeping. And then other times they're in the chapel. Right? They are celebrating the Eucharist. And those are different moments than the rest of the moments. Right? So, all this is to say, with hobbies, right? Hobbies are what you do with some of your common time. Right? Some of that common time. From which your time of worship, your time of prayer, right, is set apart. Right? You do things with that are not sinful, right?
Judge,
But that are common.
executioner.
So, yeah, playing the guitar, sitting and playing and practicing the guitar, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. You don't have to be singing Christian hymns, right? That's, but part of what comes out of that Puritan idea, where you don't acknowledge that something can be common and not bad, common and not sinful, is we have to come out with a Christian version of everything. We have to have contemporary Christian music, we have to have Christian rock, we have to have Christian, movies, we have to have, this, that, and the other. There was a period where there were people trying to make Christian pornography. I'm not joking. Where it was just married Christian couples in the videos. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, no. Like, that's not how any of that works, right? You don't have to go and try and baptize everything to make it okay to do. Right? Now, hopefully you're not doing sinful things while you're listening to the music. That's a problem, right? And hopefully the music is not arousing your sinful desires. If it is, you probably shouldn't listen to that particular music. But it's okay to watch music. It's okay to watch movies. It's not okay to watch porn, but it's okay to watch movies. Right? Like, and this is something that previous generations understood. That you have this, this goes all the way back to St. Augustine and the city of God. You've got the city of God, you've got the city of man. He literally invents the concept of secular. St. Augustine does in that work. Right? The world, the changing world out there, where we live most of our lives. Right? And then we have these times where we enter into the city of God. We enter into the kingdom. And then at the end of our lives, Lord willing, we enter into the kingdom permanently, right? But in our daily lives, again, especially if you're not a monastic, you are living in the world. And you have to pay bills and do a job that may not be working for Christians are doing anything particularly Christian. Right? You may be working in a cubicle. You may be, doing spreadsheets. You don't have to find a way to religify that. You can just do that. Yeah. So I think this next game will be the last game. And you folks know what that means. I guess I'm playing Spider-Man is what that means. Okay, you asked for it. My favorite beer, as Napoleon's favorite beer, is Bass Ale. Bass Pale Ale. Copyright #1 in Britain. What is Exhibit A of Plato Brain in the Platonic Corpus? Like, what text would you read in order to get
I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
to see Plato Brain in action?
Multiple realities.
The Theaetetus. The Theaetetus. That's where he gets into his metaphysics. And his discussion of the divine. That's where you get the divine is completely stationary. Oh, and we're on the new resource map. Have I done a stream with the resource map? Maybe I haven't streamed the resource map yet. So this is a whole new mode of map that I may not have streamed before here.
At least I know.
Probably Metropolitan Anthony Bloom's Beginning to Pray. Book on Repentance. That's a good one. With Repentance, I want people to read the life of David in Kings.
The battle starts in
But so there are 3 capture points on this map.
2, 1.
They open in different orders every time you play it. So this one is going to be CAB. We're heading towards C right now. Me and the fellas.
Hostiles in front. Never mind.
And so, as each of these opens, you go and you have to try and capture it. No one has captured this one yet, which is pretty amazing. And so once you capture each of these, as they open, you start to gain resources. So you can see there's that number under verses at the top of the screen that counts down, and it's going into the other team's account since they captured it. And so the goal is you have to earn a certain number of resources to win. If one team dominates, they can get enough resources from the first 2 points to win, all by themselves. But if they don't, so if you split up some of the resources from the first or second point, then what happens is you enter a rumble mode on the 3rd point. And when you're on the 3rd point, in rumble mode, as you gain resources, the other team loses resources. So while you're gaining, the other team is losing.
Great job. You're loading up on resources.
And that lets you then get enough to win. So it's kind of an interesting new game mode.
Looks like resources
It's only available in quick play right now, not competitive.
Available area.
Because they want to iron out the bugs before they release it in. So the other team has apparently abandoned this point, and is probably all camped out on A.
Team is ready to rumble, baby.
Oh, and did they add it to competitive now? Okay. They did, yeah, they all ran over to A to try to take it.
Uh-oh. The other team is extracting those resources.
Ah! I suffered the death of 1,000 cuts.
Us against the world.
What there is to do in Lafayette is eat some of the best food you have ever had in your life.
Halfway to victory.
That's number one.
Get more resources. It's
Uh,
time!
Number two, get alcoholic beverages like daiquiris from a drive-thru. But don't worry, they put a piece of tape. They put a piece of Scotch tape over the straw when you get your daiquiri. So there's no conceivable way you could drink it on the way home, and it is not considered an open container.
This is real firepower!
Great job! You're loading up on resources. Resources are nearly tapped out here, too. Sorry. You've got competition. Clear the enemies to extract more resources. Uh-oh! The other team is extracting those resources.
Battlefield ready again.
Gonna climb over here.
Fantastic! The rumble phase is about to begin.
So this is going to be Rumble Phase. Whoever takes this is going to start stealing resources from the other team until they have them all and win. I saw something about Calvinism, but I'll have to get a repost.
Without Spider-Man,
The world! Uh-oh! The other team is extracting those resources.
I mean, Calvinism proper, the divine decrees cover everything. They will say, God foreordains whatsoever comes to pass. So everything that happens was decreed by God to happen, as it happens. Right? In the way it happens, at the time it happens.
This is real firepower!
Right? All of that. Including sin, including evil, including everything. They will describe themselves as monergists. Right? Monergist meaning God is active, humans are totally passive. Right? William Volman. Volman. I don't think so. So, Why would a Calvinist pastor preach the gospel? Let me answer this question before I end the stream. It depends. Some of them don't. So, for example, there was this Dutch Reformed splinter group that broke off from the church I grew up going to, called the Protestant Reformed, who don't believe in preaching the gospel. They think it's casting pearls before swine. They preach to the people in the church, and they think that the Holy Spirit will bring anyone who is elect to their church. And so they don't preach the gospel. That's not most Calvinists. Most Calvinists would say, well, God has foreordained that everyone who is elect would hear the gospel. That means someone has to preach it so that the elect can hear it. And if that is what God has determined for you to do, then you go and you do it. With the knowledge that only the elect will respond when God makes them respond. So anyway, that's the end of that question. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I don't know what I'll stream next. Who knows? I'm not going to make any promises. Could be soon.